supposed to do is tell us the time. That's its only job.
I know, right? Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians and lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host, broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota. Join me as always, Megan, Jesse. What are we going to be talking about today?
Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff to get into. We'll be talking about a Second Amendment victory that just came across, the Supreme Court ruling against Keith Ellison, so all the details surrounding that. We'll discuss an omnibus bill that the GOP is pushing that grows Keith Ellison's Antifa Keith Ellison's Attorney General budget. So get into the numbers there, explain everything what's going on. We'll hit on the war against A4L. We talked about it a little bit last time, but we wanted to get into all of the details since we just kind of touched on it. And we've also got Warren Wessel joining us, so we got plenty of good stuff to get into today.
Warren Wessel, Keller Williams Realty, the best singing baritone bass of the East Metro. Real estate agent, by the way. Probably not the best of all, but of the real estate agents.
Absolutely.
The best.
Absolutely. You did a good job, too.
Thank you. Well, we should tell people, at our church, there is a tradition on Easter. Is it only the traditional?
Yes, just the traditional service.
By the way,
service says.
Very traditional guy. As soon as those guitars and drum sets come out, I don't want to have anything to do with church. I'm sorry. I know that offends a lot of you guys out there. It's just, I'm very traditional. So we have the organ, right? We have the hymns. I love it. And they do the Hallelujah chorus of Handel's Messiah every year, and they welcome anyone up to come sing. And I was like, I can't leave Warren hanging, so I came up there. And we both have a bass voice, so it worked out very well. And thanks for sharing the music with me, by the way.
Of course.
That was so nice of you, Warren.
Absolutely.
Not only a damn good real estate agent, not only a conservative, but sings in my church choirs, I always say. Isn't that the glaring endorsement every time?
Absolutely. You did a great job, too.
Well,
Jay.
thank you so much. All right. Let's get into it. Warren Wessel is one of our sponsors of the show. It's really weird when he's here, This show's brought to you by him. Give Warren a call at 612-419-7453. And if you're buying a home, go through the good guys at John Galt Mortgage Company. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com, or you can check them out on Facebook or X. They're terrific people. Top-notch meme game. Do you ever check their memes?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, you need to check their meme game. It's probably 3 a day, and it's good stuff. And they don't hide what their viewpoints. Well, I mean, the company's called John Galt Mortgage, they don't really hide their views. So go to johngaltmortgage.com. We're also brought to you by Alpine Cabtree in the great city of St. Cloud, Minnesota. Deep in Tom Emmer's district there, Jesse.
Yep.
All right.
Before we get started, I see we got Tucker 91, Truth Wins and MN, Bleeding Aluminum, Brad Ganser, and Billy 22 already tuning in. So if you want to interrupt and get right to a topic, make sure to leave a Rumble rant, and we'll jump right to it. Also seeing JL Jazz and K-Wall for Life. So nice to see everybody tuning in.
Oh, good. Good to see all you guys there. JL Jazz, we'll be seeing you on Thursday, right? Hopefully. All right, and K-Wall, hopefully. Cheers to you, Tucker. Nice to see you guys in the comment section. All right, this is a great thing to talk about because we don't get to say this too often in Minnesota, but we have a victory on the Second Amendment. This is great. Now, technically, this victory happened last year. The Eighth Circuit decided in favor of gun rights in Minnesota. It was a challenge to Minnesota's law that said that 18 through 20-year-olds could not actually have a permit to purchase or a permit to carry a pistol, basically allowing them not to have a pistol, right? So that was challenged in court because very obviously when you're an adult, you can serve in war, serve in the military, you have the right to vote, but you can't, actually use your right, your God-given right to keep and bear arms, which is protected in the Second Amendment. That's insanity. And so the Eighth Circuit last year decided in favor of, let me think here. I always get this wrong. So it'd be the plaintiffs in that case, right? The plaintiffs in that case, and against the state of Minnesota. So let's go to the A1 here, Dawson. This is guns.com, which has a story for us. The nation's highest court on Monday denied hearing further government appeal in a case over the constitutional right for adults under the age of 21 to carry a firearm. Among the denials published in this week's order from the U.S. Supreme Court was a continued appeal in the case of Worth versus Jacobson. Turning the case away without dissent, the High Court solidified a unanimous 2024 ruling from the U.S. Eighth Circuit that it in itself affirmed a district court summary judgment for the plaintiffs, which found, quote, the Second Amendment's plain text covered their conduct and that the government did not meet its burden to demonstrate that restricting 18 to 20-year-olds' right to bear handguns in public was consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation, end quote. With the case finished, a permanent injunction preventing the state of Minnesota from enforcing its age-based carry ban will move forward. This strengthens the hand of gun rights groups fighting similar laws nationwide. Let's go to the A2 here, Dawson. Now, what's really fascinating to me, when the Eighth Circuit decided that they were going to rule in favor of common sense, in my opinion, and allow 18 to 20-year-olds to carry a firearm in the state of Minnesota, and I get the sense it's also other states, but I guess I don't know enough. I only care about Minnesota here in this case. But it says, this is a press release from Keith Ellison. This is July 30th of last year. And I think we probably covered it on the show then. But at that point, there was an injunction. So you literally could not carry a firearm. In fact, actually, Dawson, pull up real quick the A3. This, what does it say? Yeah, okay. So they still haven't updated this. This is the website, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, which still says you must be 21 to get a pistol permit on this page. I'm going to show you that they've actually updated on a different page. But on this page, saying that you have to be 21 to get a pistol permit. Okay, Minnesota, in case you don't know this. By the way, I'm a instructor for what we call permit to carry, or most people just call concealed carry. But in Minnesota, it's permit to carry. And so essentially, to get the right that really is your right. I'm a very pro-constitutional carry guy, right? But to have that right in Minnesota, I have to use quotations right because they're taking away your rights, even through a permit process. But to do that, you actually have to go through a course, and then you have to go to your sheriff's office, and then they shall issue that. And they have up to 30 days. And they could charge you up to $100. It's all crazy, right? You should just have that right guaranteed by your creator. Okay. Don't need to get in that diatribe right now. What now is allowed to happen is that people 18 to 20 can now do the same thing that 21-year-olds can do, 21 and above. All right, let's go back to Ellison. So back in July 30th, this is a press release from Keith Ellison, Antifa Keith Ellison, as we call here, asked full Eighth Circuit to review decision allowing 18-year-olds to obtain open carry gun permits. Petitions Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals for review by full court, a 3-judge panel decision ruling that 18 to 20-year-olds may obtain permits to open carry pistols in Minnesota, contrary to longstanding Minnesota law and historical tradition. Argues panel decision failed to consider Supreme Court guidance in recent opinion that upheld a federal law criminalizing firearms possession by domestic abusers. Okay, and then it goes on to talk about how Ellison filed a petition for rehearing. So, in other words, I think the point here is Keith Ellison using taxpayer money in his office, representing the state, right, wanted to trample on the rights of 18 to 20-year-olds to keep and bear arms.
Right, and he's the highest law enforcement officer of the state, which means that, if anyone should be protecting the Constitution, it should be the Attorney General. The fact that he is wasting taxpayer dollars to attack the Constitution, to erode our constitutional rights, shows how bad this guy really is.
Yeah. Tucker says, really? Do you do house calls, Jake? No, I don't do house calls for my permit course. You come up here. It's worth it, by the way. Not only do you get to shoot with me, we also have a weapon simulator here, so it's pretty sweet. So I'll let you know about that. By the way, if you're a sponsor of the show, we'll give you a discount too, by the way. So if you're a premium subscriber to Truth Hurts, you get a discount. And you get to shoot with me. Isn't that great? Isn't that a lot of fun?
You still got to let me know when that happens.
Oh, yeah. I actually, I just got this instructor permit like a month ago. My life, it's coaching, 3 sports. Now we're full in baseball season. And these courses, are only on weekends. And it's a whole weekend, and it's all these prerequisites. And finally, in March this year, I had the opportunity to do it. I was like, oh, my God, I have a weekend off, and turkey hunting season hadn't started yet. So I was like, oh, finally I could do this thing. And then the weekend approached. I'm like, God, it's looking like it's going to be a good weekend, and I'm going to be in a classroom all day. The range time was very minimal. Oh, I'll tell you what, man. Those weekends are precious these days. Very precious. Anyhow, let's go to the A4 Dawson. This is now, and I posted this on Twitter this morning. This is what the BCA website says. Scroll down for me real quick. And now it says that you are eligible, 18 to 20-year-olds, which I don't know how much of our audience is in that demographic, but I imagine if we have 18 to 20-year-olds in our audience, they are people that probably would want to get their permit to carry and be able to exercise their God-given right. So 18 to 20-year-olds eligible to apply for Minnesota firearm carry permit now. Isn't that great? Isn't this good news? So this is brand spanking new. I think this decision came down April 21st, yesterday. So it's great news. And I'm not used to big wins for the Second Amendment in Minnesota, especially after the Minnesota Supreme Court had the worst decision ever on basically self-defense. I mean, this is such a massive victory.
And I'm surprised that Keith Ellison would, follow through on that. The fact that it's up and that it says that 18 to 20-year-olds are allowed to purchase the firearms now. At least he followed through on it, but it's unbelievable that it even took to that point because you're right. The Supreme Court shouldn't have to even be weighing in on these things. But when we got tax dollars that are being wasted by Keith Ellison for this, I'm glad they were able to make that decision and straighten things out here.
Did you see the middle-aged lesbian guy responded to this tweet?
No, what did you have to say?
Here, I'll bring it up. It's kind of funny. Can you read it?
Yes, because this closet anti-gun group led by a middle-aged lesbian. I can't even read it here.
Or whatever BS elementary school crap you're using this week, kicked their ass in court multiple times. They never even got a single judge to side their way, but please continue with your BS.
So he does listen to the show.
Yeah, but what's his point?
You should probably fill out all that paperwork for however many years of tax documents you haven't done.
Oh, so you got to win. Good job there, Brian. You guys are terrible at the legislature, but you do okay in courts here and there. I mean, good God, these people are so petty. Yeah, that comment is so funny, by the way. And just, I got to say, that's what that profile pic looked like. Got to say that. Failcan says, let's do BB guns so we can shoot at Jake. No. Treat every firearm as if it's loaded. Only well, okay, never mind. I was going to go the second rule, but he might actually want to shoot me. Not funny to joke about that kind of stuff. Modern day BB guns, by the way, could be very dangerous. By the way, I have a BB gun. No, I guess it would be only a pellet gun. But it's like that, the barrel break one. Oh my God! And then I just won a Red Ryder. Actually, my son won a Red Ryder at the Elk Foundation banquet last week. And I was like, that is so old school. They seem so goofy. The little cocky one, boink, But by the way, some of these new BB guns, huge. K-Wall says, nice to hear a win for 2A. I know, right? It is so good to hear this. But it doesn't get past the fact that Keith Ellison is literally using his office to go against people's fundamental right. Like, they want to talk about how Trump is taking away our rights. You're literally using your office to go against our right to keep and bear arms. And by the way, if you don't think an 18-year-old should be able to carry a firearm, why do they have the right to vote? Why do they have any right?
Well, and this is the same. The Democrats, they say, well, at 18, you're not responsible enough to carry a pistol, but about third or fourth grade, you can determine what sex you are, and if you want to switch it.
Well, we have to listen to our 4-year-olds when they talk, right? That's
what if the 4-year-old says, I want to carry a pistol? Should we listen to him then?
No, and they shouldn't get tattoos. I do think it is important that, it's like my issue with the arguments on abortion. Like, definitions are going to matter over time, right? So what is the age of the majority? What is the age of an adult? Okay?
Right.
Once we establish that, then they should have the rights given to them, right? So, yeah, kids should not be able to get tattoos, right? Or at least without parental consent. And so, the abortion issue comes down to, when does life begin? Right. And once you make these definitions, it's very important to keep it. Well, the left never wants to have definitions.
No.
What is a woman? When does life begin? They never want to touch that one. When does life begin? And when do your natural rights begin? I guess apparently that's an issue when it comes to gun ownership. The idea, but of course, let's be honest about the left. They don't want even 25-year-olds from having a handgun. They don't want a 65-year-old to have a handgun. They don't think anyone should have a handgun or a dangerous AR-15. By the way, you remember, you're old enough on this set. You know, I'm the old guy, Warren, when you're not here, right? But we remember from like the 90s, the evil handguns. Those were the big dangerous thing.
Right.
The AR-15 wasn't the big boogeyman back then. It was pistols.
Yeah.
Oh, how dare! And that's actually what got me so interested in pistols back in the day. I used to buy those guns and ammo magazines,
Sure.
all the latest and greatest and stuff like that. But that was the big thing they were going after. Now it's obviously the AR-15s, those high-powered AR-15s. You can't have those things going
Well,
around.
they're weapons of war, Jake.
Weapons that Tim Walz carried in war. No, he didn't. Not at all.
It's such a weird, like, why 21 for a gun? I understand 21 to drink because, like, your brain is still forming or whatever reasons they can come up with there. But, like, to use a gun, you could drive when you're 16. Driving is, like, mega dangerous. Too.
Way more dangerous than firearms.
Like,
by
I
the way.
don't. It's
By
such a
stats.
weird. Why 21? I don't get it. I don't know.
I mean,
Is there?
I think because the left is behind a law. Their idea is that people should not be able to have firearms in general, right? I mean, they say, "Oh, you can have your grandpa's hunting gun," but I think when it really boggles down to that, they wouldn't even want you to have that. Which, by the way, in their society, because there's no magic wand, that means government has all the guns. Like when you really play that one out, that's not good, man. That's not good at all. So they don't want to have anyone in our society armed.
Do you think?
I think the Democrat argument is also that 21 is the maximum age you can be in a high school to still be in there and graduate and everything. So I guess they could argue we don't want alcohol, we don't want guns in the school. But those are ridiculous arguments anyway.
Why don't they just do age of 18 and a high school diploma? Would that give an extra incentive, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, just take the course, right? Everybody has to take the course anyways. So
Right. And by the way, do you know when my first firearm course was? When I was 12 years old.
Yeah,
Did they do it in school?
No.
Oh.
I mean, that wouldn't be crazy. I mean, we brought our bows to school. We used to have an archery class. And as a guy that bow hunted back even in high school, I didn't like the bows they had at school. I brought in my, state of our bow back then.
Yeah, we had gun safety classes. I think I was in, I don't know, 12 or 13, and it was pretty much through the school. Went out to the gun range and you shot. And
When was that? Odd 8 back in
it was
down
it was in the
sleepy-
70s. It was in
where are you
the
from? You're from
early
southern Minnesota.
70s down in southern Minnesota. Shout out to Truman.
There you go, Truman.
Go Blue Jays.
No, hunter safety is what I was referring to, right? Which was actually at a National Guard armory. So yeah, I had my first firearm course. And by the way, if you're a parent that uses firearms, your safety with your children should start at a very young age. Guess what? My 10-year-old's gonna be shooting, well, hopefully shooting a turkey here in a week. So he's been shooting a 12 or 20 gauge shotgun.
We got a comment here. Becky Hack says, stop at taking a course to buy a firearm is infringement. And I don't think anyone's arguing that it should be that way, but it is the system that it is, and obviously people should have some sort of training. But should that be required by the government? Probably not.
Oh, definitely not. No. Yeah, there's things that, like, in my viewpoint, you have the absolute right. And by the way, our founders put it in the Bill of Rights. It's the second one, right? Because it's maybe more important than the First Amendment, but the First Amendment is pretty damn important. So there's a reason they put it number 2. It's pretty damn important. And those rights didn't come from government, didn't come from our founders. It's recognized as a natural right. Okay? So the government shouldn't do that. Now, as a responsible adult, and this is the thing about like being a libertarian-minded individual or conservative, in our kind of society, which is much less government, there's actually more responsibility. Like government creates this like false sense of security. It's like a moral hazard. You put too much trust in the government and you take less responsibility, right? This is a massive issue when it comes to finances, certainly with big banks and big institutions. This is very well known during the Great Depression or Great Recession. So what there is a lot more responsibility, and a responsible adult goes and gets that firearm safety training. So I would be a huge advocate for it. That's actually why I do it, because people need to understand that weapon. Just like if you were a welder, you don't just pick up the equipment and start using it, right? Any big machinery, you need to understand. You need to go through safety training of it. And a firearm is no different, because a firearm's a dangerous tool. There's no doubt about it. It's made for killing, either animals or intruders. So you want to make sure that you're safe with it. What do you got, Dawson?
Do you feel similarly? Because I'll go back to driving. Driving is incredibly dangerous, and you do need to get licensed by the government to be allowed to drive on public roads and stuff like that. Is that not similar to taking a gun course and needing to learn it to be able to purchase a gun?
Well, I think that's kind of an interesting argument, meaning that the roads are public spaces. I believe.
And you can use.
Can you drive on private property before 16?
Yeah.
A license, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Like if you're working on your grandpa's farm or something, you're allowed to drive a truck around or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, certainly that was the way it was back in the hot.
I guess right? I don't know about right now, but.
All right. No, I don't know. I haven't thought about that issue for a very long time. I don't know how I feel about that, but certainly one of the most fundamental rights that was specified in our Bill of Rights was not the right to drive a vehicle. It is to bear arms. So that does seem to be a pretty damn important right. It's the same thing in you shouldn't have to have a permit to exercise your right to free speech.
Yeah.
Or you shouldn't have to have a card that says it's okay to practice your religion, right? So I do think that these are fundamental rights. But I don't know. I haven't thought about that.
Because in my brain it makes sense.
Right to travel.
Yeah. Right. Right to travel is an important thing. It's just it's not on the top list of the Bill of Rights. You know what I'm saying?
With just about any dangerous tool, I think back to shop class, IT class, where you're using bandsaws and stuff as a 14-year-old or whatever.
Yeah.
That stuff can be super dangerous, and if you shouldn't be licensed to be able to go and buy a bandsaw, but it's a good idea to get the training for a bandsaw or for cooking on a stove or for any of that stuff. So I mean. They should be able to teach you guns. They should be able to teach you how to hunt, how to use power tools, all that stuff.
Well, I think it's and I think it's Becky Heck in the comments, it really comes down to really government shouldn't be mandating things, but that doesn't mean that there isn't responsibility, right? And I think most of us could be very responsible, right? By the way, government doesn't prohibit irresponsible people from doing bad things. That's kind of this misnomer, thank you for your safety, government. By the way, if you rely on government for all your safety, boy, that is a very dangerous course of action. Certainly if it's for your personal safety with firearms. Oh, we don't need firearms. The government's in charge of that. Gee, that couldn't possibly go wrong. Let me give you all the examples in history where it did.
Talking about the freedom to travel, I mean, with the real ID thing, that's going to be...
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up, because we were originally going to talk about that today. I got Twyla Brace joining us on Thursday.
Oh, okay.
So we'll bring her on to talk about that. But yeah, that's an interesting topic. And by the way, the reason we have real ID
do you guys
in Minnesota,
have a real ID?
I don't.
I don't.
Oh, heck no.
I do.
Of course you do.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
My grandpa told me to
it's
get
a national ID system.
All you need is a passport, right?
Right.
If you want to work around it, right?
Yes.
I get the feel. Yeah, we'll talk about it Thursday, but
we will talk about Thursday. Yeah. But the reason we have it in Minnesota is because of the Republicans. The Republicans took the majority in they won the 2016 election off the backs of Trump's big surge. So they took the majority in 2017 in the House and the Senate. Dayton was obviously the governor. And their number one priority was to pass a national ID.
And what was their motivation?
Special interest. And the base was against it. The base was so against it that both congressional districts 2 and 7 GOPs wrote a resolution saying they were against real ID. And they still did it. This was the number one priority of Republicans in Minnesota. And pretty much most of these Republicans that were there at the time probably voted for it. Okay. They voted in a national ID system. Oh, I got stories up the wazoo, and we'll probably bring them up with Twyla, because Twyla's group was fighting at Citizens Council for Health Freedom. We were big allies in that fight. And it turned out they put all their political energy, the budget, grow the budget. Gun rights, no, we're not going to pass any gun rights with this new majority. I think that was maybe the year they got the sound suppressors passed in Minnesota. Not that that's obviously a good thing, but it's like, oh, wow. How about stand your ground? How about constitutional carry, right? No, they put their political energy in a national ID system, which is insanity. And by the way, this was the big argument against it. And we're going to get into this on Thursday, but it was we need this thing because otherwise Minnesotans couldn't fly. Delta Airlines, which Kirsten was working for at the time, was a big lobbyist in that Real ID fight because, they won't allow them to fly. Well, I was like, oh my God, guys, listen. There is no way the federal government is going to stop 5 million people in a whole state from flying. That's not going to happen. This is one massive bluff.
Right.
And they said, we better do it now. Otherwise, everyone's going to be required. And by the way, this is a fight in 2017. It's just being implemented next month, 2025. It was all bullshit. And do you know how Real ID passed? It passed in like some jumbo omnibus bill at like 2 in the morning during the Patriot Act kind of debacle, like 2004, 2000. No, was it 2004, 2005? I think it was some renewal of the Patriot Act. They slid it in there.
I don't understand. What does the physical, like, what does the ID do? Like,
well, it's got like the chip. Okay, so it actually goes to a national database, and we'll have Twyla come in and talk about this stuff, and that's the problem with it, right? Now, obviously the passport would be the same thing. The difference here is a passport's really only used for travel. The Real ID, and this is the real crux of it, is it's going to be used for everything. It's going to be used for health care, right? You already use an ID when you go to a hospital.
Yep.
It's going to be used to purchasing firearms.
Yeah.
So this is such a cop-out by the Republican establishment to go be a part of a national ID system, which will be used against your liberties and your privacy, by the way.
See, that's my long game. If I act like a liberal now and I buy a gun, then Joe Biden 2.0, whoever gets into office eventually, will be like, he's one of the good ones. We like him.
Right.
He's a lib. So I get to keep my gun.
Now we've been obviously trashing Keith Ellison here on this show, which is fine and dandy. So Keith Ellison's a terrible guy. We call him Antifa Keith Ellison. Certainly, he doesn't need more money. Especially when he's got time to go work against our rights. Isn't that correct, Jesse?
Right. When he's spending our tax money to go to the Supreme Court and waste it on behalf of unconstitutional Second Amendment lawsuits, that's a major problem. And where are the Republicans on this, Dawson? Let's go to the B1, because the rhinos, Jim Nash, are the ones who are pushing to increase Keith Ellison's budget for the Attorney General's office. So we can pull up that article. That is up on actionforliberty.com. So Minnesota is under the control of radical leftists and rhinos who enable them. While the GOP establishment would want you to believe that simply electing Republicans will solve all issues, time after time we see rhino politicians backstab the conservative base. In this case, Rhino Jim Nash, 48A, is working with Democrats to increase Antifa Keith Ellison and Antifa Keith Ellison's Attorney General office budget. Omnibus spending bills are the large focus of the state legislature as it wraps up this year. The list of spending and policy omnibus bills are found on the Senate webpage. And Minnesota passes 2-year budget bills in odd number years. The State Government Policy and Finance Omnibus Spending Bill is where the funding for the AG's office is located. So this is HF 2783, is this year's state government funding bill, and it is co-authored by Rhino Jim Nash and radical leftist Ginny Cleavorn. This bill increases funding for Ellison's office to $46,919,000 for 2026 and $47,398,000 for 2027. In 2023, the state government spending bill only had Democrat authors and passed along party lines. In the 2023 bill, the 2025 budget for this year for Keith Ellison was $43,825,000. So when we compare that to the numbers that I already listed there, this means that this is an over $3 million increase for next year and over a $3.5 million increase for the year after that compared to what Ellison got this year. So the party of election and the party of limited government is going to give even more money to Antifa Keith Ellison rather than fighting him. In total, this bill costs $1.35 billion and is over $45 million, an increase on the February forecast base. So Nash clearly lacks the negotiation skills, or worse, he is truly in line with the Democrats on this issue. So on April 10th, this bill was passed unanimously out of the House Government Finance and Policy Committee. All of the Republican legislators fell in line with it, which includes Jim Nash, Ben Davis, Paul Anderson, Jim Joy, John Kosnick, Dwayne Quam, and Tom Sexton. Along with all of the Democrats, there wasn't anybody who went against this. And they all voted to pass it and to refer it to the House Ways and Means Committee. In a bad sign for transparency, the House has not published the Government Finance and Policy Committee's minutes, which the minutes are the note-keeping for that committee. I had to go in and watch the video myself because the minutes weren't available. And the bill webpage still lists that it sits in that committee rather than the Ways and Means. As of the article's publishing date, the Ways and Means Committee has not taken up the bill yet, and it is not even on their public listing docket. The Senate version for this bill is authored only by a Democrat, Tao Zhang, and their funding numbers for the Attorney General office is the same in both the House and Senate version. This bill is also in violation of the MNGOP platform, where it states its support for, quote, ending the use of omnibus spending bills, end quote. That can be found on page 2 of the MNGOP platform. And to make matters worse, this spending bill costs more than the 2025 state government funding budget pushed by socialist Tim Walz. So the Republicans are even more liberal with our tax dollars than the Democrats. Jim Nash and Lisa Demuth and other rhinos planning to vote for this garbage are phonies who could never be called conservatives. In 2023, Nash and Demuth criticized the 2023 Democrat state government spending bill. Nash quoted author Oscar Wilde and said, quote, the bureaucracy is expanding to meet the needs of the expanding bureaucracy, end quote. But now, Jim Nash is leading the charge on behalf of the expanding bureaucracy. So he's the one who talks conservative when the Democrats have power. Now that he has a little bit of power, he is just going along with what the Democrats would do anyway. So rhinos use performative measures to pretend to be conservative, but at the end of the day, they're the exact same as Democrats. The WWE style of politics has become known to the grassroots. The curtain has been pulled and patriots can see the uniparty in action. In addition, this budget bill adds new spending for government-built electric vehicle charging stations. This will eat into the state's energy grid and cause blackouts. This enables Walz's tyrannical 2040 carbon mandate and the Green New Deal climate hoax. And then I got a portion of the bill listed there. People can check that out. So this bill also adds new language that allows government officials to report fraud and stop payments to groups if fraud is found. However, fraudsters already do not follow the law, and corrupt government officials will continue to look the other way. Accountability and cutting massive government spending is the only way to eliminate fraud. The handoff of a massive liberal budget for a few non-controversial fraud laws shows how weak of negotiators these rhinos are. Nash has clearly not read The Art of the Deal. Republicans should pivot and opt instead for pre-COVID spending levels, as Action for Liberty has continually suggested. Instead, spineless GOP legislators are working to push a budget plan that expends the evil big government, totals slightly over $666 billion, 66.6, would be the second largest budget in Minnesota history and would eat into your surplus dollars. As we previously reported, the GOP budget spends more tax dollars than the government is anticipating to take in, which means it is not a balanced budget and will eat into the well-deserved surplus dollars for taxpayers, no matter how much unhinged Walter Hudson defends it. So Action for Liberty will continue to expose the corrupt uniparty of Minnesota that seeks to expand government, spend more of your money, and strip us of our God-given liberties. A4L will continue to stand as a blockade in the way for the grassroots against the establishment. While rhinos push spending bills that benefit the radical leftists like Keith Ellison, we will be here to set the record straight. So this is an extremely pivotal fight right here. We see the rhinos who are just caving to the Democrats. The fact that they have a little bit of power on this omnibus bill and they just hand it over. They're giving the power directly to Keith Ellison, expanding the budget on top of all of this unconstitutional actions. I see Phil Cannon with a $5 Rumble Rant says, I bet Wednesday Walter fully supports expanding Ellison's radical budget. And you're right. We're going to have to keep an eye on all of the rhinos who end up voting for this. So keep an eye on the state government finance bill. Because, like I said, that is where the Attorney General funding is coming from. It's an increase from 2025 spending. And, this is with Jim Nash on the bill. Jim Nash is out there advocating for this bill. He said the exact opposite in 2023. This guy's a phony.
By the way, when you were reading this, I was thinking, this happened before. Gazelka did this. And then I looked at your show notes because you were doing the second segment.
Yo.
And I saw you actually have the article in there. We got to go to.
Yep.
We got a Rumble Rant, and then we got to go to this. It's
Yeah.
so interesting.
K-Wall for Life gives us a $10 Rumble Rant. Appreciate it. Says, too bad there are no cars with Biden bumper stickers now that we learned that keying cars isn't a punishable offense anymore. Exactly.
I know, right?
Crime is still illegal if you're a Republican. It's perfectly fine if you're a Democrat. Let's go ahead and pull up the B4 there, Dawson, and we can see that Paul Gazelka had done the exact same thing before. We've seen these rhinos. They all want to talk tough on Keith Ellison, but then when it comes time to actually cutting his budget, Paul Gazelka stands in there to increase Attorney General's budget by 17%.
No, it's been a while. Did I write this? Yeah, I
Yeah.
wrote this article. Okay, so this is July 1st of 2021. Okay. And there's a video link. So I probably haven't linked this article since I wrote it back in July 2021. But I got to imagine, and there's a link to this video, that he is saying he's going to cut funding for Ellison. So let's click on this video here, Dawson, because this is just them saying one thing and doing the exact opposite. Go ahead and play this. This is the former Senate Majority Leader, Paul Gazelka.
Hi, this is Senate Majority Leader Paul Gazelka, and I'm
not have
here to
volume? I
make
don't
a
have
message.
I got it.
Say that. What?
Oh,
Yeah, I
you
can
got
hear
volume? Am I not plugged in? Oh, what the heck?
I don't have any either.
Give me a second.
I can
All right, replay it. It was on me.
Message for you to hear, but also for the governor and the attorney general to hear. You cannot keep closing down these bars and restaurants. They're hanging on by a thread. Literally, when you say that they can only open outside and have people gathering, nobody's going to show up when it's 10 below. It's like you're putting a nail in the coffin and it's over. And these businesses, they're our friends, they're our neighbors, they provide services for us, and we are all so grateful for them. But if we don't step in and stand up for them, they're not going to make it. And so what am I going to do? Well, next year we have to pass a 2-year budget, and the Senate and the House have to agree on how much money the Attorney General gets in his budget. And if you start fining these people $10,000 apiece, you can expect that money to come out of your budget. These businesses need to survive, and just doing this at the last second is not.
God, these guys are such phonies. So, okay, go back to the article. You heard him. This is probably 2020.
Nope. Sorry.
By the way, Keith Ellison went after all those bar owners, restaurant owners, Lisa Hansen, in case Lisa Hansen ends up in jail. Lisa Zarza Monet. She goes by both last names. Lisa Monet. That's what I called her. Jane Moss, Larvita. All these heroic tavern owners, they get fined by Keith Ellison. Gazelka in this budget, and this is what was really interesting because I looked at the numbers, and it's amazing how much it grew. But he grew it by 17%. Go back to the headline here. It says in here it was Gazelka did it by, he expanded by $8 million or 17%.
Wow.
I mean, like,
That's
it
even
just
worse
doesn't
than
get
Jim
clear.
Nash.
It doesn't
Right.
get any clearer than that how fraudulent these guys are. Now, here's the interesting thing. And then I looked at the bill. What were the numbers of Jim Nash's Attorney General's budget?
I'll pull it back up here. I know that he increased by over $3 million for this year, and then $3.5 million for the next. But
Yeah, give me the
let pull it
number.
back up here.
Just give me the last number.
Yep. Okay, so the 2027 spending is $47,398,000.
How much?
$47,398,000.
The 2023 appropriations to the Attorney General were $29 million.
Wow. So yeah, about $18 million more than.
You know, at some
From that.
point, you just have to call a spade a spade. And this is, so we've only done 2 shows in the last 2 weeks, both travel to Vegas for the broadcaster show and then also turkey hunting last week. And actually, it was about showtime where I was closing the deal on my turkey, just FYI. So, you get away from things for a little bit. You get to reassess the world. And it just, the more I think about this stuff, the more I realize, like, the Democrats, their like ranks got filled up by the socialists, the Marxists, okay? And so those traditional leftists have started filling the ranks of Republicans. I'm not even certain how many of these people even are conservative. Because like the ones that say they're conservative, you're either just a complete sellout, like the Wednesday Walter types, because I definitely believed he was a conservative at one point, or you're just such a pussy. Let's just be honest. You're a big pussy and you don't do shit about anything, which is almost worse. Like, then you shouldn't be in the legislature if you're not going to stand up and do the right thing. I know there's a lot of giant pussies up there. Sorry for my language, but that's just what it is. These guys are giant wusses, okay? But I almost wonder, because, you know, I don't think there's very few statesmen up in the Capitol right now in Minnesota, and even fewer out in Washington, D.C. I mean, the majority are probably wusses. There's a bunch that are probably just complete sellouts, you know, trying to enrich themselves or get another position. But I think there's a big segment that literally are Democrats. They literally are leftists. I mean, we're seeing that. We've been reporting about like this feminism inside the ranks of the GOP. Like, it's crazy. It's like literally they're leftists. The same thing that a leftist would do, you start seeing at echelons at the Republican Party in Minnesota, to the point of, we were reporting on Joy Orvis, the secretary of the Minnesota GOP. She sounded like a straight up feminist, making false accusations against Eric Mortensen. Like, I think these people, I wish I knew the percentage, but there's a big faction. They're just straight up leftists, but they run for the Republican Party because that's the district that they live in. And you see this kind of stuff and you're like, how is it that you guys keep growing government? Let's go to the B2, because I threw this in there. I gotta just bring it up again. The Republicans in Minnesota, I had a friend who was asking me, was a friend or, I can't remember, family member, someone was asking me about like, how busy are you going to be in like May at the end of the legislative session? I go, I don't think busy at all, because usually these big budget deals come to the wire. They come down to, you know, both sides, and it's still fraudulent. They go to this back room and they cut these deals, and they're all friends, you know, and stuff like that. But usually that's what happens towards the end of the legislative session in May. This time, the Republicans literally have made a deal with the Democrats a month and a half before the session ends. And when you look at their budget proposal, scroll down here, I'll show you the chart. It literally spends more money than Governor Walz's budget. See, Walz is that blue one on the second to the right, and the red one's the GOP proposal. They're proposing to spend $66.6 billion, $2.1 billion they're rating from your surplus money. And all that is just cementing in the growth of government done by the Democrat trifecta. Nowhere in their heads was, hey, we campaigned on less government. Maybe we should go back to $52 billion. Nowhere in there. Keith Ellison, we really dislike him. Keith Ellison's our enemy. He's suing. He's trying to make sure that 18 to 20-year-olds can't exercise the right to keep and bear arms. He shouldn't be funded. Oh, you're going to fund him more.
Yeah.
Like, at some point, you just have to realize these guys are Democrats. Oh, I love it. K-Wall's like, yeah, and that wasn't lost on us, that they are raising the budget $66.6 billion, right? The mark of the beast, right? Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago we were fighting over 34 and 33 billion.
Correct. That was 2010 era. Yeah, somewhere in there. That's how much government's growing. The Democrats, and by the way, the messaging, I should add a montage of this ready to go for the show today. The Republicans' messaging in the last week was the Democrats grew your government. Their trifecta grew it by 36%. I'm like, yeah. And you guys locked in the majority of that spending.
Yeah.
To the point your budget spends more than Governor Walz. I mean, what excuses? And they're stealing your surplus money. Like, how is that a Republican plan? You actually have a surplus, and they're using it to cover government spending. What part of conservatism is that? I missed that class, clearly. And then when we come out, and we'll cover this here, the war against Action for Liberty makes the front page of the Star Tribune a week ago. The second some group actually points out, hey, you guys aren't doing what you said you're doing. Oh, we got to question them.
Yep, got to go to war. Right.
Yeah, we're going to go to war with the people telling the damn truth. You got an article. Is it released yet? Can we talk about this?
It's not released yet, but we can get into it. Let's go to the B3, Dawson. So this is not published yet, so you guys get the first eyes on this. But this is another interesting piece here from Action for Liberty. Democrats have full control over 8 omnibus spending/policy bills, while the GOP has 0 despite having shared House majority with the Democrats. So our state is being destroyed by radical left Democrats and weak rhinos who are allowing it to happen. Despite the GOP holding an equal number of representative seats in the state House as the Democrats, the GOP has full control over 0 major policy or appropriation omnibus bills, and the Democrats have full control over 8 of the 21 bills. A full list of the state Senate versions of the 21 omnibus bills can be found in the link there. Budget bills cover 2026 to 2027 spending. While it would be expected that the Democrats get control over the state Senate authorship for the omnibus spending and policy bills because they have a majority in that body, it is strange that they would additionally have that power in the state House for over a third of the omnibus bills when the House majority is shared by Republicans. Republican representatives in the House are co-equal to the Democrats, but are treated like they are powerless. GOP legislators in a shared majority should have equal access to legislative control, especially with an elected speaker from your party. You got to wonder why Lisa Demuth isn't stepping up on this one. Below you will see the 8 omnibus bills that have no GOP co-author. So go ahead and scroll down a little bit. We've got the Jobs and Economic Development Policy Bill, the Commerce Policy Bill, the K-12 Education Appropriations Bill, the Cannabis Policy Bill, the Labor Policy and Appropriations Bill, the Energy, Utilities, Environment, Climate Policy and Appropriations Bill, the Higher Education Policy and Appropriations Bill, Health and Human Services Policy and Appropriations, and the Election Judge Policy Bill. Unfortunately, having a Republican on policy or appropriation omnibus bills does not necessarily fix the issue either. A bad bill is a bad bill regardless of potential Republican authorship. As we've previously reported, the article we just went over, Rhino Jim Nash is a co-author on the State and Local Government Finance and Policy Omnibus Bill that increases Antifa Keith Ellison's budget and adds spending for electric vehicle charging stations, which would eat into our state's energy grid and cause blackouts. Further reporting on other omnibus bills in greater detail will be in the future. Simply being an author on these bills is not enough. Republicans need to grow a spine and use their shared power House majority as leverage. They must gut out all the wasteful spending, corruption, or woke policies from these bills and shrink the budgets to their most essential services. The MNGOP platform calls for the elimination of omnibus bills, and the Republicans must lead on that issue. Also, the Minnesota Constitution also rules that Article 4, Section, I can't remember what it is. Article 4, Section 17, I think it is where it says that multi-subject bills are unconstitutional.
Oh,
so,
Article 4, Section 17.
yeah, Article 4, Section 17.
All bills must be single subject, and that subject expressly written in the title. Something
Right.
like that.
And legislation cannot pass without Republican support in the House, yet they are allowing Democrats to have total control for over a third of the omnibus legislation that is on the docket. Of the 21 bills that are listed, only one has more GOP authors than Democrat authors. HF 2027/HF SF 2511 is the Omnibus Liquor Policy Bill, which has 2 GOP House authors, Tim O'Driscoll and Bernie Perryman, and 1 Democrat senator, Matt Klein. This bill is extremely non-controversial and proves how weak the rhinos really are. The only bill where the Republicans have any real power is a liquor bill tweaking policy and where people are allowed to drink. That's kind of interesting. I got to review that bill a little bit more, but it lists out all these different places to allow people to now drink, like the Science Museum and whatnot. So if people want to get drunk at the Science Museum,
Well, it's probably for like special events.
I'd imagine so. But it basically allows the Science Museum to have the permit to be able to sell, as well as some other places. Like I said, from the scan over I did of it, it seemed pretty uncontroversial. And that is the only bill where the Republicans have any kind of control. Because on every other one, they are outnumbered by the Democrats. It shows that these people are weak negotiators. So GOP House representatives must assert themselves and refuse the Democrat omnibus budget and policy bills. Instead, the GOP should push for conservative balanced budgets and policy bills that repeal anti-liberty laws. AFREL has continually demanded GOP legislators push for pre-COVID spending levels. Weak rhinos who refuse to be hardline negotiators are selling out patriots and our freedom, which makes them just as bad as the Democrats. A phony friend is no friend at all. Action for Liberty will continue to expose the uniparty corruption in Minnesota and lead the fight for grassroots conservatives. So, as said in here, this is the only time that the Republicans have any power of these 21 bills is over liquor and just some little tweaking of policy. Meanwhile, Democrats get total control over 8 of the 21 bills, and then the other bills where it's shared power, they're no good anyway either, because we got people like Jim Nash who are increasing the Attorney General's funds for it. So no matter which way you look at it, these budget bills are no good. The Republicans need to grow a spine. They have a co-equal majority within the state house, and they are refusing to use that leverage. And Lisa Demuth is totally dropping the ball. You need the speaker to get behind any kind of bill that is going to be presented in front of the body. And the fact that she is allowing these Democrats to run roughshod and have total control over a third of the omnibus legislation, while the Republicans have no co-equal opportunity to do the same. It just shows that the Democrats are completely controlling the scenario, and the weak rhinos are letting up.
You know what? When I was having this conversation with a friend saying, are you going to be busy at the end of May? I said, no, I knew that this was going to be a pointless legislative session back in February when they supposedly cut this great deal with the Democrats. They still gaslight us about this great deal. And then it hit me, Jesse, and I don't think we covered this at the time. The Democrats, I think, maybe pulled a fast one on them. Because if the Republicans were ever to stand up for their conservative views here, which they're clearly not, Lisa Demuth would get the blame when there's an inevitable government shutdown or whatever, because she's at the helm.
Right.
And so the Democrats have outplayed them because they're just going to play chicken. They go, we're going to take this, we're going to get this, we're going to get that.
Right.
Otherwise, we're going to have a government shutdown. We're going to blame it on Lisa Demuth,
right,
the one Republican speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And in that regard,
nothing changes, just the puppet.
Nothing changes. Like, there literally is nothing. Like, it just goes without saying. Republicans, if they just unanimously all voted against any of these bills, they can't pass it. They can't pass a budget. If every Republican...
Especially when they have no influence on 8 of these bills.
Right.
Why would they ever want to get on board with these? And one of them, the higher education finance bill. The Senate leader on that is Omar Fateh, an avowed socialist who is currently running for Minneapolis mayor. So if the Republicans, and you need Republican votes for any of these budget bills to pass, you're going to need 68 votes, so you'll need at least one Republican who's going to get on board with them. And so the Democrats currently have a socialist who is running control over one of these education bills. The Republicans have no influence, but I bet a bunch of these Republicans are going to vote for it anyway. They need to grow a spine. And you need to, people should be contacting their legislators, especially the Republican legislators, and telling them that they need to vote against these omnibus bills unless they are able to influence them and actually get some good stuff done. Because as of now, there's a whole lot of garbage going on.
Now, I did see in the comment section, and this is some news here, Keith Ellison, the Attorney General's office, is fighting against the Trump administration to force boys to compete in girls' sports. So there you go. And once again, Republicans in Minnesota are increasing Keith Ellison's budget. It's just common sense here. It's like, boy, if they have all these resources to be fighting these battles, then maybe they have too many resources. And you heard former Senate Majority Leader Paul Gazelka say, we're going to hold them accountable. We're not going to increase it. And then they do, right? We're going to take $2,000 off of their budget. No, you didn't do anything like that. You didn't do a single thing. Okay, so that gets us here. Let's talk about this, the War Against Action for Liberty, okay? Now, the organization I founded, don't run the organization anymore. Jesse, obviously, big part of Action for Liberty. And Eric Mortensen, great new president. Maybe many would argue maybe even the best president they've ever had at Action for Liberty. I don't know. It's debatable. But I might be in that column. Anyhow, all kidding aside, doing great things, right? They end up on this. You don't get the Minneapolis paper.
I don't get the Star and Sickle.
You don't get the
no.
Star and Sickle. Okay. Have you ever advertised in the Star and Sickle?
No.
It'd be pretty costly, I would imagine. By the way, I used to think this was a Sunday paper. Like, the Sunday paper wasn't expensive. Didn't they usually? It's cheaper because of all the ads. Or am I not remembering this right? Or it's more expensive because people wanted the coupons.
Back in the day, they were $1.
That's what I always remember to be $1.
Yeah.
It's $4.
Well, right. Well, everybody, looks online. Nobody gets print anymore.
I
so they
know,
have to
but I
charge
wanted
more.
the physical paper, because it's kind of funny. My name's actually literally on the front of the paper in a way that's supposed to be trashing us, right? The paper reads, "Fed up, state GOP fights far-right group." Oh man, those far right group, those people. They're. By the way, I was watching Conor McGregor being interviewed by Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, I watched some of that.
And
too.
he's being labeled the far right candidate for president. Apparently, he can't run for president. Like he's having trouble even running for president.
President of Ireland, because why?
Yeah, because it's controlled by the parties. I didn't look into it, but that's what he was saying. So that's interesting. But yeah,
they call us far right. Meanwhile, Jim Nash is far left. He's increasing the budget for Keith Ellison. So there is no right wing besides Action for Liberty in this state.
But what does far right mean? Like people will say far right authoritarian. Well, that doesn't make sense to me. If I'm far right, I'm the exact opposite of authoritarian.
Right.
So I can't be far right. If there's something called a far right authoritarian, I can't be a far right. And yeah, we know what they're trying to do, right? Because it's not just a conservative group, it's the far right group. We know what they're doing. Now it says pushes on to cut out the cancer. They're quoting Wednesday Walter. Pushes on to cut out the cancer of Action for Liberty, a group intent on reshaping the party. Now, here's my big question, and that's what the headline and the byline says. Here's my big question. The Republican Party of Minnesota hasn't won a statewide election in 19 years. It seems to me maybe you should listen to the people that want to reshape the party. I don't know. You're not winning. Maybe, just maybe, they got something to be said. But no, let's just keep doing the same thing. Okay, here's the other thing. Oh, look at T-Wall. Bless you. I like the article. Failed to tip the trash day for all. Yeah, it actually turns out it's backfiring on them because our kind of people that even happen upon this article go, oh yeah, that's my group. So they literally write, the state GOP's executive committee declared that leaders of Action for Liberty are more focused on tearing down Republicans than helping the party win elections. The leadership of the organization said works only to enrich themselves. Yeah, with all those Bentleys and things that we're driving around here. Huh?
Yeah, well, Republicans will never win elections if they abandon their conservative base, because the conservative base will not show up to vote for you if you're voting to increase Keith Ellison's budget, if you're voting for all of these omnibus spending bills that are unconstitutional and against the MNGOP platform. Then why would Republican voters turn out to vote for you?
And you disenfranchise hundreds of delegates in Otterdale County. Gee, that's a strategy for winning elections. Good job, guys. Keep it up. Only to enrich themselves, attack those actually making a difference, and claim victories they had nothing to do with. Read the declaration brought by committee member Bobby Benson, the state chief of staff for Republican U.S. Representative Tom Emmer. Now, not just a Republican rep, the third most powerful United States congressman, the majority whip. Now, you would think, hey, I'm the media. I should be a little skeptical of people in power. Nope, that's only skepticism of Tom Emmer and Bobby Benson. The rest is just geared towards Action for Liberty, an outside group. Like they're the big evil cancer, when literally you acknowledge that someone orchestrating resolutions at the state executive committee is a paid staffer for the third most powerful guy in Congress. At some point, journalists no longer really were skeptical of the people of power, and they went instead to help them out, which is what this is. It's a war against Action for Liberty using a far left paper. By the way, the Star Tribune just announced today that they're hiring a woman. I guess she's a Minnesota native, but she was a political editor at the New York Times.
Wow.
And before then, the Associated Press. This is who they're bringing on to help out their paper. Some woman from the political desk at the New York Times. Boy, that's a real credible organization. Okay, so anyhow, this is all a fight. And just to really explain this to people, the reason Action for Liberty is a threat to these jokers, the establishment, which I think a lot of you guys probably agree with me, many of them are just Democrats. They run as Republicans because that's the district they have, right? Some of them are just con artists who say one thing and they get up there and they're like, oh man, I'd rather have this power and be invited back to the table. And then the rest are just a bunch of wusses. Okay, so what ends up happening is
I think we're having some tech issues.
There's a tech issue?
Yeah, you're freezing up on the screen here, and Tucker saying something crashed. Radio 55, why is the show hanging? BDC 1450 says both Rumble and Locals. So
nothing is wrong on
I
my
don't know
end.
if it's just the visual that's not showing up on Rumble or if it's the audio as well.
Nothing is wrong on our end, so refresh your page if you can. If you have to lower the resolution settings, make sure you do that too.
Rodeo 55 says it's a conspiracy against Action for Liberty. It's interesting. It came up right when we started talking about it.
How come that never happens the other way, where a conservative goes in and pretends to be a Democrat, be a lefty, and then gets elected?
Some people think Fetterman's doing it, but that's not the case.
Oh, right.
Yeah, no, it's
Gotta be
definitely not.
locally.
Yeah.
No, it just never happens, right? Yeah, because the gravitation is towards the power structure, right? You want to be part of the party. You want to keep getting invited back to the party.
Mhm.
Their number one goal is to get elected. Number two goal is to get reelected. And number three goal is far behind. It's not even worth mentioning. Whatever, if there is another goal. Actually, there is another goal, to seek a higher office, right? That's what these guys do.
Well,
and the game is rigged in their favor, too, by the way.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any party switches that went on in Minnesota. I know there was those two senators, Bach and Tomasoni, that became independents, but not a whole lot changed when that
Which,
happened.
from
anyway.
their perspective, was the greatest maneuver
Right.
ever,
Yep.
right? It benefited them greatly,
Mm-hmm.
and the Republicans acted like it was a big win for them. I'm like, what's the win?
Right. Well, it got Tom Bach to be the Senate president, right?
Correct. It was a big win for him.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I didn't see what the win. Well, was that what it was? Or I think he was the chair of like the investment committee or something like that. He was the president before that. Whatever it was, God, see, I forget about some of these ancient fights. Whatever it wasn't like a big win for the Republicans. Like,
right.
Like they're still going to vote the same way they always did, which is not good.
Well, I think it was to prevent a Democrat Senate president, and that way, when they switched over,
No,
and
they
became
were already in the
independents-
majority.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah,
It was
I can't
like
remember
it was like
exactly
the
what it was
line,
then.
like, oh look, these guys the Democrats left them, and the Democrats did leave them.
Mm-hmm.
So they get to hurt the Democrats who were like turned on them, but it's not like the Republicans won here. It's
Right.
just stupid little battles. It's so dumb.
Right. Bach and Tomasoni were both against voter ID. There were so many issues that they went along with the Democrats on everything
Right.
important.
Right. All right. Anyhow, so this fight is the fact that Action for Liberty represents power in the grassroots. And these guys want to hold on to power. And so this is really a fight for a monopoly that they want to have on the Republican Party of Minnesota. So what's really fascinating about this, let's pull up let's go to C3 first. This is the Republican Party of Minnesota's Q1 finances. Okay. And this just came out. So this is ending on March 31st. The Republican Party raised total receipts of $210,000. You see that? $210,000. And scroll down to total spent. So they call it, it's funny, they say disbursements and expenditures. Okay, so total disbursements, $228,000. Boy, they just like the budget up at the Capitol, overspend, right? Mm-hmm. So that leaves them, and you can scroll down to the bottom, with ending cash on hand of Q1, $40,000. $40,000 total for the Republican Party of Minnesota in their federal account. We have no idea what the state account is because they won't have an annual report till next year. I don't even want to get into how much more the Democrats have raised and have cash on hand. It's a staggeringly larger amount. I mean, by a lot. Okay, but that's what the Republicans have is 40,000. Okay, now I'm not trying to just slam on the current leadership of the Republican Party, but we've talked about this thing. Okay, and Alex Plekish is even in this article. Alex Plekish is trying to play a stupid game. He's trying to be a fence sitter. Okay, so you have two lanes in the Republican Party. You have the establishment, and the establishment's not all one group, but by far the most powerful group of them all is the Tom Emmer group, right? I mean, it's only right here in the paper. His chief of staff, who works for him, also happens to run Congressional District 6 GOP, which seems to be a massive conflict of interest. But they're like literally quoted in here. So it's the third highest guy in Congress, has the most power over the Republican Party of Minnesota. Okay. Now, on the opposite side, there's a lot of factions of the GOP grassroots movement, but obviously the biggest one, Action for Liberty. And so that's where the fight and that's where the war comes. Now, what is Action for Liberty doing? We're just going out and exposing the corruptness. We're exposing the further left decay of the Republican Party with facts, with evidence, telling people with the hope that just maybe they clean up their game and start fighting for conservative values. But the Emmer types do not care about that. Now, here's where the Emmer types have a leg up. Go to the C2, Dawson. Tom Emmer, showing his fundraising prowess, says his campaign announces $10 million. What happened to my article there? $10 million in Republican fundraising so far in 2025. So just in quarter one, I don't know what this means. I'm guessing it was his chunk of receipts to the NRCC, because it wasn't just his campaign, but that he amounted to $10 million in 1 quarter fundraising. And so what they're going to try to do, like they did with David Hand very successfully, is buy off the MNGOP. And it's a very good pitch, a very good sales pitch here, right? Hey, you guys want to stop being broke? You need to go up against Action for Liberty, and there's money there, okay? And why do they have to go up against Action for Liberty? Because the Republican establishment doesn't want you getting involved in taking back power. You know, that's essentially what Action for Liberty's job is to give you power back, right? Mm-hmm. Like, honestly, there's way more of us than there are of them, right? If we all just got involved, you've been a delegate for a long time, right, Warren? You go every 2 years. You go to caucus, right?
I haven't been the last few times, but yeah, I was to quite a few of the.
And very active in politics.
Yeah.
They're hoping you don't do what you do. Yeah. They're hoping you're not active. But when we become active and we become delegates and when we support good candidates, that goes against what they want to do, which is just protect their little monopoly of power. And so that's what this whole thing's about. And I think what's really fascinating about this is, you know, Action for Liberty is clearly not irrelevant.
Yeah.
They made the front page.
They made the front page. So clearly they're doing something, you know? That's why I love how they say, oh, they only enriched their founders or enriched their, what did they say? Only enrich themselves, right? If they're only enriching themselves, then why are they on the front page of the paper? It seems like they're just wasting money. What is it? Are they wasting money? Or are they actually doing something that's really threatening your power? Gee, I don't know. The fact they're on the front page seems pretty evident. They're threatening your power. By the way, not threatening your power so they could start doing what they want to do. It's just to take back the government, right? Because the government, the problem is, it's not serving you, the people. By the way, the big story on Capitol Hill today, not Capitol Hill, Minnesota Capitol, is that the funding the Democrats passed, and by the way, the Republicans will support most likely, that gives our taxpayer money to illegal immigrants for health care so they can purchase health care, is like triple the costs that were planned. And you just beg the question, why did I just pay taxes in the state of Minnesota so people that don't have a right to be here get health insurance? And by the way, if you're self-employed and you pay your own health insurance, geez, what an insult that is, right? Just maybe these people don't have our interest in mind. That was the other thing about the Conor McGregor interview on Tucker Carlson. He was talking, that's why they're calling him far right, because he's just against, he was like talking about how there's this foreign company that's got the, running the tolls for this, like, these roads in Ireland. And there's like some pass that the immigrants are getting, and they're getting funded cars and stuff like that. Right. Meanwhile, people can't even afford to buy houses. Like Irish people can't afford to buy houses. Like, yeah, literally Minnesota, as your egg costs are going up, as the Democrats keep telling us about it, right? We are just literally giving our tax money to people that don't have a right to be here, illegal immigrants.
So why do you think the Minneapolis Tribune put that on the front page, talking about Republicans, just to show they can't get along, or what's the real reason?
Well, I think they're probably doing a favor to Tom Emmer's people, but certainly they'd be incentivized by infighting on the Republican ranks.
Right.
But the fact the slant was so much against Action for Liberty makes it seem that they were trying to do a favor. There's something really fascinating. The media used to be skeptical of the power structure. That's good, right?
Right.
They're not anymore. And I've heard some reasons for that. One of them is, at some point, journalism became a mainstream kind of like pursuit in college and in universities,
right?
Even like the elite universities, to the point where they're becoming friends with the power structure back in, the college days.
Sure.
It's belong in the same clubs. And so it's all this. And by the way, Trump comes in, and this is one of the reasons, is Trump was not a Washington guy.
Right.
So he comes in, and it's already adversarial, right?
Right.
So,
It's not part
obviously
of the
the
club.
media moves more left, but, that can't explain all of Trump. It definitely can't explain Trump because he wasn't that far of a conservative.
No.
There's something else, and it was the fact that he didn't come from the same ranks. This is a real issue. There was a big story a couple years ago about, do you remember this? The lady who was covering the Supreme Court, I think she was with NPR or Associated Press. Turns out she was actually good friends with RGB. So their lead reporter had a undisclosed relationship with one of the Supreme Court justices. It's like, well, that's kind of a massive issue.
Yeah.
You're not impartial, but they're in a club. They're in a friendship with each other. We got a lot of comments here. Do we have something we want to read? My egg cost went down, says Becky Heck.
Yeah.
Well, I hope mine did too. I wasn't checking the bill, but I saw a bunch of eggs in my fridge that just got painted, and I got shut up about some expenses around the house. But geez, with egg prices these days.
Yeah.
What do we
and
got?
Let's see. Shogun Us says, Emmer fundraising proof rainmaking is the problem in politics. How much of that money is spent on legitimate campaigns? How much of it will be to pad the pockets of consultants and vendors?
Good point.
Money laundering, right. That is a massive problem within politics, is that the money doesn't go where you think it does.
Awesome. Shogren says average family of 4 pays 10 to 15K a year plus deductible of 14,000 a year. Ridiculous. Zero state or federal resources support non-citizens. Let people fund nonprofits. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, you really shouldn't be supporting people that are here illegally because they shouldn't be here. But I mean, obviously, you wouldn't want to turn away a child or something like that. But leave that up to the churches. Leave that up to the nonprofits. Privately funded nonprofits. You got to be careful these days because once again, the government just uses them as proxies for their funding. But it's a massive problem. It's such a slap in our face to take money from us, and this is happening in April, right? You just took all our money and then you just give it to someone that's illegally here. Unbelievable. But I'm guessing these Republicans talking a big game won't do jack shit about it. I know there's a bill, HF 10, that would get rid of this in the Minnesota Capitol, but I'm guessing that will go nowhere because, as we mentioned before, Lisa Demuth, though, she won't want to play chicken, and she won't get rid of this funding. In fact, how are they going to get rid of this funding? They already came up with the deal, the budget deal. It's not going to get rid of this thing. So the Republicans, and this is the other thing that bothers me, is they keep talking this game. They keep puffing out their chests and bringing up these complaints, and they do jack shit about it. Didn't I just see the other day that
They bring up bills that they know are going to fail.
Right.
They put up these bills so they can say, see, the Democrats are all voting against us, and we're all voting in lockstep, and it's such a joke. Why would you waste the time to go through the motions of something that you know is going to fail and pretend like you're going to do something and just get people's hopes up? Because that's all the Republican Party does. They lied about so much. They lied about 40B, pretending like Republicans were going to get a majority in the state house, only for them to lose by 40 points. So, the Republican leaders need to be replaced.
Say, getting back to illegal immigrants, I always wondered why is it okay to be a part of a crime like that? I mean, aren't you a conspirator with them if you're helping them come across and be in
Are
our
you saying
country?
we make a RICO case with all the Democrat politicians?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, that's what they were going to do to Trump in Atlanta. So
Right.
why not? Let's bring a RICO case against these guys.
Well, the governor of New Jersey there was saying that I'm going to house one above my
Right,
garage.
right.
It's like these Democrats are obviously implicit in this thing.
But
Is
that's actually a really interesting point because you're right. They were literally going to do that to Trump, a RICO case against Trump, subvert the election. Well, we know that it is a federal crime to be here illegally, to cross the border without a port of entry, right? And so then when you compound the fact that you're going to give them driver's license and you're going to give them health care and stuff like that, how is that not a RICO case?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure all those George Soros appointed attorney general, or sorry,
DAs.
appointed supported DAs.
how
not
is that
appointed.
not
Well, that would be a problem if Soros was appointing them. Supported DAs are really going to get on that.
how is that not obstruction of justice?
Yeah, definitely should be.
Well,
I guess because because the Democrats, still have the deep state and they still have the Justice Department working on their behalf.
well, because just maybe, the Republicans aren't doing shit about it, right? Like, I just saw this the other day, and I'm pretty sure this is right. that the Republicans' bills that are being proposed will do absolutely none of the Doge cuts, or any cuts that the Doge team would have got are going to be basically wiped away by like the increase in the Pentagon budget and everything else. And then we were talking about before, like,
but that's assuming it's all spent. You know, it's obviously up to the Trump administration on you know, how much money actually gets spent. There's always unused funds, so just because they appropriate doesn't mean it's all going to be spent.
I really feel like, and this is going to really look bad on Republicans and then Trump eventually, that it's like this is just one big farce, what the Republicans are doing out in Washington, D.C. And then certainly doing the state. We follow the state a little bit more often. And I'm not certain how much of a culprit Trump is on this thing. You know, maybe I'm being blinded here, but maybe, just maybe, he can't do anything about it at some point. Is it just me, or has Elon Musk not been in the news as much recently? Is the Doge thing kind of like
the most
been a couple
recent
days.
the most recent thing I saw about him was that he is so this is some reporting is saying that he's talking about leaving politics altogether because the left is harassing him. I don't know if that's real, but I saw that tweet.
Well, didn't they say he could only be there for 90 days or something as
I
a
think that's what
special?
his contract was or something like that, right?
Okay.
As
Yeah.
a special government employee, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, at some point, like,
It can be extended.
I love the concept of Doge. I think it's great. At some point, is it just impossible to take Washington, D.C. back? You know, because I'm kind of getting to that point where I think there's like two different lanes. It's either Trump is a fraud and he wasn't being serious about it, okay? And so now he's in office and he's not pursuing these things that he said he was going to pursue. And here's the reason I don't know if I believe that, because why would he let go the fact there's no information about the guy that tried to assassinate him? Like literally nicked him in the ear. So then it makes me believe Trump did have this genuine desire to change Washington, D.C., and it's not possible. I mean, certainly Congress is stopping a lot, but the deep state's stopping it to a point where we could talk about releasing the Epstein files. We could talk about all this stuff, and it never happens. We could talk all day long about Doge, and it's never going to happen.
Has Trump spoken out about the Republican budget that was passed up in Congress?
He supported it. Well, the current one,
like where it's
yeah, I can't remember. I guess I don't know, because the Senate and the House are way different.
okay.
But neither one is going to balance the budget. Both are bad. Like at some point, you know what I'm saying? Like we are not getting it all. And by the way, we're getting all the flack as if it's happening, right? Like everyone wants to go on the left, to the point that left is organizing very well. You guys all saw these protests across the state, you know, in the last week. They're organizing. The media's against it, and we're not even getting the results. Like, what's the point in Doge if you're not going to actually Doge? I saw someone wrote, Minnesota needs Doge. Yes, Minnesota needs Doge. But we're not even getting Doge out in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
It's like a concept that's not happening.
That was the one of the things that I was surprised even by was Elon Musk, I think it was like half a month ago, said Doge is expected in its first or by 2026 to get rid of $150 billion worth of fraud or something like that.
Right.
When he was saying like we're gonna do $1 trillion.
Right.
We will do $1 trillion, which
Right.
maybe that's just talk or maybe that's just, you know, yapping.
Or it's impossible. I want to take Elon Musk at his word, and maybe you realize this isn't going to happen because it can't happen. They won't allow it to happen.
I think that both things, those aren't mutually exclusive. Where Musk says we're going to do $1 trillion and he doesn't mean it, and also it's not possible. Like he could just know it's not possible, but he's just thrown out numbers to throw them out because it sounds good.
Those numbers actually need to happen, in my opinion. Otherwise, our country's screwed financially. That is
Right. It's completely possible. You
Right.
know, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we need Ron Paul instead of Elon Musk. You know, I don't know what the right answer is here, but yeah, I don't know. And Trump's going to be bringing in money with tariffs. It's all about the trade deals. I think that's how he's going to negotiate down some of this debt. We'll have to see. You know, obviously, I'm not thrilled about these budgets either, but there's a little bit more playing room.
Nintendo products are now costing like $10 more for little dinky toys because of tariffs. the gaming community is very interested in how that stuff is going right now because everything's made in China.
Right.
Everything's made in China.
Which is
so
a massive problem. Okay. Yeah, that's where I get a little depressed when I start looking at the news. But I'm like, man, these and I go back to the state because that's what I follow more these days. But I look at the state and I go, geez, these Republicans, they're frauds. They just really are.
You know,
To the point where Action for Labor was door knocking this last weekend in actually my district, Senate District 41. I got door knocked. It's great. About Wayne Johnson, who refused, like every other Republican member, to vote for the amendment of HF 21 that would have been the Never Again bill. Instead, they killed that. They didn't actually. You know what they voted on? And we did a video on this. They didn't even vote on the amendment. They voted on the germaneness of the amendment.
yeah.
It was ruled out of order. Jim Nash, Rhino Jim Nash, literally said this is out of order. The speaker, Republican speaker, said she ruled, and then they were basically voting on her judgment, and it didn't. They weren't able to overrule her judgment. It's like, so there you go. There's what they got from the Speaker of the House.
It's corrupt delay tactics so that they don't actually have to vote on. That way they can excuse it by saying, I wasn't voting against the bill itself. I was voting against it because it couldn't be amended. This bill can be amended this way. These people are so full of it. They allowed other amendments, including a portion of the Never Again bill, to be inserted into the fake Never Again bill. But they didn't want to force a real vote on it because, of course, it would force all these conservatives to really vote on a true hardcore plan when, they could have just allowed the vote and, even the phony conservatives could have at least pretended that they would have supported the Never Again bill. But instead, they all acted in unison, and the rhinos run the show.
I got something I want to talk about in the post show. Another thing that came to my mind, I wouldn't say I had a week off, but I had some time off. Okay, I realized I don't take a lot of time off, and then I get in the woods for a couple days. I'm like, I kind of needed that, so did some deep thinking. I got something I want to talk about in the post show. You're gonna appreciate this, Dawson. If you want to be a premium subscriber, go to truthhurtsnews.com. Click on support us on the top. Otherwise, if you're on Rumble, you can just click right on there, and it says join us, and become a premium subscriber for $8 a month or $88 a year, and you get access to the post show. We'll talk a little bit more about this infighting, as they say, the rhinos, the establishment. We'll hang out. You can hang out a little longer, Warren.
Yeah, sure.
Gotcha. This episode was brought to you by our good friend Warren Wessel Realty, Keller Williams Realty. You can call Warren at 612-419-7453. Remember, I didn't know your number. It took me forever. And you know what the funny thing is, Warren?
What?
I know my number. I know my parents' numbers, cell phone and home. I probably remember some friends' numbers from high school. I know my wife's number. And I know Warren Wessel's number. There's not a lot. I know 1-800-CARS for kids. I don't know a lot of other numbers out there, Warren. So you are in like this small group of people.
I'm honored. I'm honored, Jake.
Call Warren 612-419-7453 if you're looking to buy a home or sell a home. By the way, also was my realtor the last time I bought a home. And about every week I'm calling you saying, Warren, I probably should sell right now, buy a new one. Which, by the way, does good market research. That's another thing about you. Like, you do good market research. And, my neighborhood hasn't sold a home, and it's almost going on a year. Like, the price I could get on my home. But the problem is, no one wants to sell because it's a great neighborhood.
Right.
Thanks to Warren Wessel. So, there's the problem. But I wouldn't mind a little acreage, Warren.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind a little acreage.
Need to get you out in the woods, Jake.
I know. And, my friend I was mentioning also just bought a acreage out there. So, what a crazy market. But anyhow, 612-419-7453 if you're looking for a guy to buy, if you're looking to buy or sell a home. And if you're buying a home, go with the good guys at John Galt Mortgage Company. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com. Also brought to you by Alpine Captree in St. Cloud, Minnesota. We'll be live on the post show in 1 minute. For everyone else, we'll be back Thursday with Twyla Braze, the Citizens Council for Health Freedom, to talk about Real ID. You don't want to miss that episode. We'll see you there on Thursday. For everyone else, we'll be in the post show in 1 minute. Take care.